What is up, guys? Your boy Elifi is back with another video. We have ranked every single player aged 25 and under. We have did the NBA standings predictions for next NBA season, and now it is time to rank the small forwards within the NBA. There are many great small forwards coming into next NBA season looking to provide great impact for their designated teams. But without further ado, let us begin. Alrighty, so we have superstar, all-star, above average, average, below average, and then the non-starter. You guys should already know the process. Let's get started. So we have Anthony Edwards, a player that was running for Rookie of the Year last year. He obviously didn't win and lost it to LaMelo Ball, but he did crank it up in the second half of the season last season. But I actually see this player being a very great, probably, I don't know about superstar yet, but he's definitely going to be an all-star in a couple years. But for right now, he's an above average player. Still obviously has more to prove for his, he only played one season, so let's see what the next season brings. And we have Andrew Wiggins. Now, me personally, I watched an abundance of Warriors games last season, obviously due to me enjoying watching Stephen Curry shoot from literally anywhere on the court, that's of course. But Andrew Wiggins, he was always an above average scorer, but last season he did improve his defense extraordinarily in comparison to his play of game in the Timberwolves days. So, but I don't think he's still at that all-star level yet, but I definitely see him being an above average player coming into next season. And Boyan Bhaktanovic, nothing special, another player that just plays his role significantly well. A great shooter. Well, I wouldn't say great, but he's obviously good at shooting the basketball from three especially. But I'll put him at the average tier because he's nothing more than a role player, of course, and he's great at playing his role for the Utah Jazz. So now comes Brandon Ingram, coming from a very awkward situation from the LA Lakers to the New Orleans Pelicans, being an all-star caliber player alongside with Zion Williamson. He's not a superstar just yet, but he has definitely solidified his spot as an all-star level player. So now we have Denny. I'm not even gonna attempt to pronounce his last name because I know for sure that I'm gonna butcher it, but the last time I checked his stats, I'm only gonna base it off of stats because I barely watched this player play in particular, but based off only on his stats, it wasn't so high. I'm gonna just be real. So judging only based off of that, I'm gonna put him at the non-starter. He could be in average or above average or below average, but for me personally, like I said, I haven't watched him play as much, or I probably haven't watched him play at all ever in my life, so I really can't judge anything based off of anything other than stats. And like I said, the stats says that he's basically a non-starter type of player, so for right now he's in that category. Now we have DeMar DeRozan on the same exact team that we're going to be heavily watching next season, because the Chicago Bulls, they got something cooking over there in Chicago, that's for sure. But DeMar DeRozan, he's an all-star caliber player. That should be easy. So now we have Danny Green. Obviously not the same exact type of player that he used to be on the San Antonio Spurs, but to this day, he's still a respectable three-point shooter, which I know his three-point shooting can be streaky at times, obviously referring back to the 2020 NBA bubble where, he missed that final wide-open shot in Game 5. And obviously people were making fun of him for his abysmal playoff appearance that year, but he's still a respectable three-point shooter nonetheless, and he still has pretty respectable defense. Obviously his defense did regress slightly in comparison to back when he was on the San Antonio Spurs, but didn't regress enough for him to be just a slouch on defense. He's a pretty decent 3-and-D player for the 76ers, and he's able to play his role at a respectable level. So he's still an average type of player because he was really never an all-star or superstar caliber player throughout his entire duration of his career in general. But being an average player and the caliber of Danny Green, something that is very crucial for championship basketball in general. So now we have Deandre Hunter, a player that missed an excessive amount of games last season due to injury and basically missed the entire postseason due to a season-ending injury for last postseason, of course. But despite every single one of these injuries, I feel like it is safe to say that Deandre Hunter, he's going to be a decent, well, not decent, he's going to be a great role player, possibly even all-star if he breaks out to that level eventually in the future. He's still very young, but he did have a respectable season last year. I feel like it is best to say that he's earned his spot in above average player for the Atlanta Hawks. So if this is Gary Trent Jr., you have him in the wrong jersey, my man. He's not a part of the Portland Trail Blazers anymore. He's a part of the Toronto Raptors. But Gary Trent Jr., I always liked Gary Trent Jr. He was always a solid role player for the Portland Trail Blazers, and he did have a couple stints where he looked like literally an all-star like type of player last season. He averaged like a good 16-15 points per game last year for the Toronto Raptors / the Portland Trail Blazers. And I remember him having a game where he scored about 40 or 50 points last season, and like literally right when he got traded to the Toronto Raptors. But despite every one of those things that I just said about him, he's not on that level of being an above average all-star superstar player just yet. Like I said, he's still just a role player at the end of the day, and I don't expect him to break out to be like a superstar level. I still expect him to be a solid role player that is a great player to have for a championship team coming into the future of NBA basketball. So now we have Gordon Hayward, the same exact player that got paid huge bucks to go to the Charlotte Hornets, and it did start a bit of controversy as NBA fans or analytics didn't believe that he was on that caliber to receive the amount of money that he received going to the Charlotte Hornets. But I think he shut down some of those narratives. He did have a fairly fantastic season. If it wasn't for injury, I feel like he would have been better last season, but he did play respectable. At times he looked like his former self from when he was on the Utah Jazz from his All-Star year. But as of right now, I'll put him at the above average tier. He did have a respectable season last year. Harrison Barnes. Harrison Barnes, where do I start with you? I'm gonna be honest with you, I really don't watch that many Kings games, so I really know Harrison Barnes as like sometimes being a player that can score like 20 something points or like a good solid 15 points a game, and then sometimes he's really not that type of player. So I feel like right now he's still going to be an average player. He was always like an average role player for the Golden State Warriors before he got traded. So I feel like he really didn't change his game too much from the time he was on the Warriors. And now he's on the Sacramento Kings playing alongside De'Aaron Fox and Buddy Hield and company, and now Davion Mitchell. So now we have Isaac Okora, another rookie from last season, but he wasn't one of those rookies where he automatically broke out to be an all-star caliber player just from year one, just like how Donovan Mitchell did, or possibly LaMelo Ball and company. But he did show stints of him being a fairly athletic player, but as of right now, he's an average player. That could change in the future. Don't sleep. Jimmy Butler, man. I actually predicted for the Miami Heat and Milwaukee Bucks series to be good, but Jimmy Butler didn't play that great that series in general. But you can't deny the fact that he's still an all-star caliber player. He's a very good 3-and-D and hustle type of player. But like I said, you got to come back strong, Jimmy Butler. That series was pretty disappointing, I'm not going to lie. So now we have Jaylen Brown. Within NBA history, there were many instances where players had a phenomenal season. They got paid their bag and they just never played the same. Jaylen Brown does not fit that criteria. Jaylen Brown had an amazing season back in the day, got paid his bag, and continued to elevate his game, and literally had his best season of his entire career last season. He's definitely an all-star caliber player. You earned it, Jaylen Brown. So now we have Jonathan Isaac, a player known for his defensive ability. He's still very young. I believe he's only like 22, 23 years old. Didn't really pay attention that much to the Orlando Magic, but I know Jonathan Isaac, he's a hustler on the defensive end of on the ball game. He's still very young, so he could possibly evolve his game to something better in some way, shape, or form in the future in a couple more years, or longer than that possibly. I'll still put him in the average category, but I wouldn't be mad if he would be put in the above average category. I really love Jonathan Isaac, I'm not gonna lie. So now we have Jae'Sean Tate for the Houston Rockets. Pretty solid player. He averaged about a good 11 something points per game, or 10, I forget, 12, 10, 11, one of those something points per game last season for the Houston Rockets. Plays his role decently, but like I say, he's still just a role player, average at best. Kyle Anderson from the Memphis Grizzlies had a few good nods from last season for his style of play, but I really don't have too many thoughts about him. But for right now, I'm just gonna put him at the average tier. And oh, look at the plays we have next: Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, Chris Middleton, and LeBron James. So now let's just get it over with. Kevin Durant, obviously superstar, so as Kawhi Leonard. Do I really have to explain? I really don't have to explain why they're superstar players. Chris Middleton had an impressive finals run. One was a critical key piece as to why the Bucks won last season. Really don't have to explain why. He's an all-star player, just not a superstar just yet. And LeBron James, he had sort of like a down year last season due to injury purposes, of course, but next season I feel like he's going to be very hungry for that ring. So let's hope to see the Lakers possibly match up against the Brooklyn Nets, like the matchup that we've all been waiting for. superstar caliber player. Man, Lu Dort for the Oklahoma City Thunder. You already know I'm an Oklahoma City Thunder fan. Not gonna be biased, but you already know I'm gonna spit some facts about Lu Dort. So as you guys already know, had an impressive first ever career playoff run. Obviously, especially in Game 7. I forgot the exact stat it was, but I remember him scoring 30 points at when he was 21 years old, which put him amongst the category of being one of the few players to score that many points in a Game 7 at that young of an age, alongside with LeBron or Kobe Bryant or I forgot if it was Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan, one of those players, but you guys know what I'm talking about. And it comes into a sophomore year and improves his game drastically. Obviously an above average defender, possibly going to be one of the best defenders in the league in a couple more years or so. But obviously the Oklahoma City Thunder are still rebuilding, so he still has plenty of time to adjust his game and evolve his game to greatness in the future. Right now, he's still an average player, but watch out. Don't sleep on Lu Dort, man. So now we have Mikel Bridges. He really showed how good of a role player he is within this postseason. He's fundamentally great and he knows his role and he plays his role exponentially well. An above average player, you earned a Mikel Bridges. And OG Anunoby, I always liked OG Anunoby's game, especially this season. He had a phenomenal season for the Toronto Raptors. I feel like he's also an above average player. He could put him at the average player, but I think he's earned that spot. What do you guys think? Do you guys think OG Anunoby is an average player and above average player? OG Anunoby really impressed me, especially this season. Now we got Patrick Williams, a player that showed great potential in the summer league and is expected to be sort of like an X factor for the Chicago Bulls got brewing on in Chicago. I really have high hopes for Patrick Williams. He's still, to me, an average player, but expect this category for him to change pretty soon, because Patrick Williams, he's got game, man. He's already shown it. Reggie Bullock, a pretty decent shooter for the new. Is he still with the New York Knicks, or is he with somebody else? I can't remember, but he's a solid role player, just average player at best, really nothing special. So now we have Saddiq Bey, averaged a good 13 something points per game for the Detroit Pistons, and it was his rookie year, just like Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball. But we should obviously know he's not on the caliber of Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball for what he showcased last season. Obviously, it's only one season, so he can't crank it up a notch for the next season and possibly place himself in an above average tier. But for right now, he's going to be placed in the average tier. And Tim Hardaway Jr., we talked about this sort of like with Andrew Wiggins regarding how inconsistent their offense can be, but Tim Hardaway Jr., man, whenever Tim Hardaway Jr. is on, he is literally lights out. In this postseason where he was going against the LA Clippers, that really showed that when he's hot, he can't miss. You literally gotta put a hand up, and if you put a hand up, sometimes he's still gonna make it when that hand is up. He doesn't see it. But is he on that category as an above average player? I really don't think so. I think it's good to put him at an average player too. I really don't think he's on that category of an above average player just yet. And for the last two players, you got both TJ Warren and Will Burton, which are most likely gonna also be placed in the average category. Obviously, TJ Warren was out for basically the entire season last year and is projected to miss even more time next season, but you already know what he did in the bubble, but it's not the bubble anymore, so we came back to reality. But before the bubble, he was a decent player. I don't think he's on that caliber of an above average player just yet though. That can be what you got? I actually don't know. Would you guys put him in an above average tier or the average tier? I think I'll put him in the average tier. And Will Burton, I'll put him in the average tier too. He's just a solid role player, and that's the list. I feel pretty confident about this list. I have the superstars, all-stars, above average, a lot of average players. I didn't put really anybody in below average. And non-starter, which, like I said, this guy can be good, but I barely watch him play, so I really don't have a legit opinion on him. But what do you guys think about my list? Comment down below what you guys think about my list, how I did my list, and comment down below any changes that you guys will make towards your list regarding ranking every one of these forwards within the NBA. Now, actually, before we end this video, I want to make a slight tweak to this list. I'll give I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I'll put TJ Warren an above average player because before he got injured, he was actually a solid or a great reliable player, one of the best players on the Indiana Pacers alongside Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis before injury. And only based off of stats, he was averaging like a good 90-something points per game. And watching him play, he's obviously a great player watching him play. Obviously not an all-star caliber player, but he's still an above average player, reliable enough to be that type of player for the Indiana Pacers. So what do you guys think? Like I said, comment down below what you guys think about my list. And other than that, that will be the end of today's video. Make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. I'm out. Peace.